Okay, I've got 25 and a half. We're going once, going twice. All in, fair warned, and sold.
You're listening to the How's It Going podcast.
Tony Abbott in Budgie Smugglers.
Yeah, no.
Interest rate cut.
The election.
Interest rate cut, Charles. Interest rate cut down 0.25.
I just want milk that tastes like real milk.
What do you mean the bank is out of money? Insolvent?
Let there be 1,000 blossoms bloom as far as I'm concerned. You know, but I ain't spending any time on it because in the meantime, every 3 months, a person is torn to pieces by a crocodile in North Queensland.
Well, how's it going? I'm here with Christian and Madison.
Hello, Benjamin.
We're back.
How are you both today?
Glad we got through the intro that time.
Yeah. What was that,
Turned
sixth time? Yeah.
Good that you've turned up.
Running joke that I'm late to every session.
He's late to everything.
He turns up when everything's perfectly set up and he just has to sit down and talk.
Some say I do it on purpose.
You do.
Who says that?
My wife.
Well, guys, we're back as always. I think this is now episode 10. I think we're up to, yeah?
Yes, 10.
Double
Yeah.
digits.
And as always, we've got to do a bit of a self-plug. So,
And they said we wouldn't last.
no. Well, it's still early days, Matt. But look, if somebody does ask, hey, can you recommend a good finance or economics or property-based podcast? Tell them no, but this one's good anyway. Go give it a look.
Yeah.
Give them our details. We are live on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, which a lot of people don't know.
Oh, we've made it.
That
I'm a
was
Spotify listener. What do you
I
guys
can't
do?
say I've ever been on Apple Play.
I don't even have an
What is
iPhone,
it?
so I
Oh,
Apple
yeah.
Music, Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts, yeah.
But we're on it. So if you use it, give it a
Yes,
listen.
We are live on there as well. We didn't really ever announce that. We kind of just silently did that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
today's episode is actually going to be a bit of a first home buyer special, I think is
A
the
bit of a
wording I was going to
handbook.
use. More so, well, I wouldn't go that far. That's going to get us in trouble. But no, more so just going over what benefits there currently are for first home buyers. So what offerings there are out there from the government basically to help incentivize young people to buy their first homes.
In an ever-changing market.
Yeah. I'm also going to go in and clarify some of the things I've said in previous episodes about the government's election promises.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Just to obviously clarify exactly what happened there and what's going on. So we'll get to it. Look, first and foremost, to jump straight into it, I don't really see a point in mucking around here, but should you just give me the weirdest look, sorry.
I was listening.
I know,
listening.
but you did anyway.
I'm here to learn
We're all
something.
on edge a little bit.
Yeah.
Like Maddie's in her fur coat,
Yeah.
stocks. Christian's got a new mic, and I'm just here.
It's freezing in
Ben
here.
was late,
It's
yeah.
absolutely freezing. The air
Sorry,
conditioning's
we're
broken.
I'm still all over the place today, aren't we, guys? Anyway.
Yeah, just rolling with it.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, look, first and foremost, the most common benefit most first home buyers get, which everybody kind of knows about, is the stamp duty waivers. So the idea is if you buy your first home and you obviously move into it and live in it for whatever determined time period, which I'll go through in a sec, the government doesn't charge you any stamp duty up to a certain price threshold. So let's play a game. What is the threshold? I know you guys have my notes, but without looking at it, Ben's already looking at it. Maddie, you just looked at it too.
I
I
know.
did know it was 800 before, but I'm without reading too much further into the notes. Yeah, my pre-knowledge was saying 800,000, and then it was a prorated rate.
Correct.
Onwards from that.
So up to 800,000 for an existing or brand newly built property is zero stamp duty. Between 800,000 and $1 million, it is discounted. And then once you hit the $1 million mark, you are paying full stamp
Can
duty
we go
again.
back 3 years ago? Don't get like the market is pretty much at the same rate as it was. It just hit boom, 650,000.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they only
That's it, and there was no discounted
they only
rate.
upped the thresholds recently. But to go back 2 years ago as well, at one point they actually had the waiver work differently for brand new properties. So they upped it to, I believe, no, at the time what it was 650, I think, for existing properties. Up to 800,000 was discounted, prorated. And then, up to 800,000, if it was brand new, you paid zero. So you got an extra benefit if you
think
built
that
brand new.
when
Now
I
that's
bought-
gone too. It's the
yeah.
same.
But we're jumping
how's
back
it
in there.
going?
Yeah, we're jumping
Well,
back in there.
how's
we had an early cut. We're in a shambles tonight. All three of us are just off the ball
Yeah,
today.
we've had a big week.
It's been a big week for all parties concerned, yeah. But no, in terms of stamp duty, jumping back into stamp duty waivers. So yeah, currently it's up to $800,000. You pay zero.
Yep.
Between 800,000 and $1 million, it's prorated. So what happens is it's effectively a sliding scale. So the closer you get to $1 million, the closer you are to paying full stamp duty. And as soon as you hit the $1 million mark, you are paying full stamp duty.
And to make myself sound smart, I quickly searched it while we were on a cut break there. Full stamp duty on $1 million is $39,000. So
They also
nearly
they-
40 grand saving.
They also tweaked all the rates again for the new financial year. So I
even
believe
better.
all the
So they're
stamp
charging
duty-
more.
Yeah, I
Yeah, they're
believe,
not
so.
stupid.
So yeah, up to $1 million. Effectively, you can save 40 grand in stamp duty
Decent coin.
costs.
I love that it all changes though. To jump back to your talking about when you bought, when I bought, it was a block of land, and I got a $20,000 payment when we bought our slab.
Spend at Woolies.
It was 20 grand. The Woolies, it was never there.
Yeah.
20 grand just in the account.
Did you invest in Woolworth shares? With
I
that
think
20 grand?
I think we invested in a Nick Scully lounge.
Beautiful.
Tegan invested in the
Yes,
Scully
yes.
Lounge.
But then I paid. Yeah, we were stamp duty exempt on the land, but
Yeah.
then we had to pay stamp duty on the build component.
I think Nick
Correct.
Scully should have an affiliation with the government. I think every first home buyer
Oh,
goes
yeah,
and buys a
if you-
Nick Scully
if you don't wait
lounge.
6 months for a Nick Scully lounge, you haven't moved in your first
What are you
home.
doing?
Yeah, exactly right.
Land, funnily enough that you mention it. So obviously there's different thresholds for land. Vacant land, the full waiver is for land up to $350,000.
Yeah, where are you going to buy that?
Yeah, nowhere around here or around Sydney, that's for
No.
sure. The discount then applies on the same basis, prorated up to $450,000. So
Still, 450 grand will get you a 300 square block in Kembla from my.
I don't even know if you get it for that at this
Yeah.
point. I think they've all exceeded that level as well. Even in
That's-
Sydney, a lot of those new developments out southwest of Sydney, there's no chance.
Yeah.
And not even close. So
See, like in North Sydney and stuff like that, they're selling like 100 square meters near. It was some unreal price.
It's
It was
fucking
going to be like
criminal,
10 or
man.
15 mil. It was near like Wallara or something. It was
100
surreal.
square meters.
It's like a time, but it's got a
what the fuck do you build on?
it's got an
100
electric
square
box
Bedroom
on
and
it.
kitchen.
It's got an electric box on it, so you can charge rent and everything for it. But it's like a public passageway. It was
Oh,
I remember seeing it on Facebook, and I was like, "What?"
crazy. How good to own an electrical box in Woollahra. You're doing pretty well.
Yeah, well, you might be selling one in Mount
Yeah,
Easley soon.
yeah. True.
I didn't
Stay
make that
tuned,
up.
guys.
I'm not even laughing. That's
do,
obviously
I
an
do.
inside joke. I got nothing. I'm with
I have
all
a
of
block
you.
of land coming with a electrical meter box
Box meter.
stand on it. Something that does
Big green
electric.
thing.
Something to do with electricity. Yeah. Yeah, going back to stamp duty waivers, the other key takeaway from it as well is the only real eligibility criteria around the stamp duty waivers is that you have to live in the property. They obviously do have time periods on there in terms of when you have to move in and how long you have to live for. It's basically you have to move into the property within 12 months of settlement. Settlement or contract date? I don't know. I'll get back to you guys on that. But
I'm
effectively
pretty
within
sure
a
it's
year.
settlement.
Yeah, so within a year of purchasing the property, and then you have to live there for 12 months consecutively
Yep.
to be able
So
to
it
claim
used
the
to be
waivers.
6 of the first 12
Correct.
or 6.
It used to be 60 you had to live there.
Yeah.
So you only had,
So
previously
you could move in for
yeah.
6 and rent it out.
they
or you put
overhauled that
somebody
I
in.
think 2 years ago now. Where you previously it was 6 months you had to live in the property and then you could do with it whatever you
It's
wanted.
such a like
It didn't matter.
grey area anyway. I've actually heard of 1 or 2 people getting done.
Yeah.
last few years for it.
well, it's
Yeah.
it's pretty common that people obviously want to try and make the most. But I'm now finding, I don't know what you guys are noticing, but I'm finding the opposite thing now. Most people that I talk to look at what the benefits are, what the requirements are to get it, and they just go, it's not really worth it.
Not worth it.
Because realistically, if you buy a property worth $650, you're paying from memory, I think it's about 22, 23 grand worth of stamp duty. If you can rent the place out for even $500 a week,
You're making that back.
Yeah.
if you went and lived there for 12 months, you'd lose. That's the 12 months worth of missed rental income is about the same as what you'd say on
Well, the
stamp
grey
duty. So
area
it's
that we
the
even
point.
find is some properties, we sell them to first home buyers. They go, I'll chuck a tenant in, kick them out on the 10th month, give them a 9-month lease, and I'll move into it in the 11th month, cutting it pretty short. These
Yeah.
tenants turn around and say, I can't find anywhere to live, ticks over, and then
Well, the tenants are
during-
entitled to, it's like, we talked about this the other
Yeah, they're-
previous episode, like
yeah.
90 days they've got.
Yeah.
If they can't find something, they've, in theory, it's not easy to
Exactly right.
forcibly evict tenants.
so it's a little bit of a nerve-wracking experience.
I mean, look, when you look at the thresholds for the waivers, let's be realistic here. Even $1 million, well, $1 million that's the 800,000 is the amount for
Yeah.
zero stamp duty, a full waiver. If you're a home buyer in Wollongong or Sydney, what are you going to buy for 800,000?
Literally, yeah.
If you want a house anyway.
Yeah, definitely not a
Um,
house.
In Wollongong, you can get a unit for under that
Yeah.
amount, a very nice unit, no problem.
Yeah.
But if you want a house, there's not many places left
No.
around Wollongong even, let alone
Very
Sydney.
nice unit. Yeah.
Yes, a very nice unit on Burke Street, to be precise.
What they're referencing there is I'm selling my apartment. Your photos were done this week, actually. The listing
We
should
got
be
them
out
back,
next week.
We got them back.
hopefully.
We'll,
Do they look good?
We'll share.
Yeah,
I understand.
we'll
Do they
share them
look good?
after the show.
Okay.
Might pop them up on the
Plug 'em,
stories.
yeah.
plug it on the podcast.
Yeah, we
Get
will.
me a better sale. Cool. Moving on. Next benefit that is still in effect, which I think people forget it even exists anymore, is the first homeowners grant.
Mhm.
And that's basically the government slinging $10,000 your way if you buy a brand new, never lived in property, or if you buy land and build. It's basically 10 grand. And again, there's price caps on that. The price cap on that is $750,000 if you buy land and build, $750,000 being the total combined cost.
I built and bought land for $650,000 in 2019.
Yes.
So 6 years later, if you're telling me you could do that,
It's for
I'll eat
Show
my
us
hat.
where.
Yeah.
well, realistically, if you want to buy a block of land at, Kembla Grange, Wongawilli now, the land itself is at least $500,000.
Yeah.
Let
So
alone-
this works
I
for
wouldn't like- I
basically
wouldn't like-
everywhere in
wanna know.
Woodwalk.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to know what you're building for under 250 grand.
You're nothing.
An electrical
nothing good.
meter.
You wouldn't have a functioning bathroom. You'd have an outhouse.
Someone comes with a tar bucket still.
Pretty much. You'd have to. Yeah, the funny part, that's if you buy a newly built home, so off the plan, right? So if it's already built and you're just buying a completed property that's never been lived in, the cap is $600,000.
So nothing.
I'd love to get a
I wanna be in
brief
the room.
understanding of who came up with these and thought
And what stats are they looking
Well, the
at?
issue is
and who are
they probably
good
came up with
for?
that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
That's probably
the
the
first
issue.
look, the stamp duty one, I think, is still well under, but it's not disgustingly under.
The problem is it's
Yeah,
statewide.
like-
So it depends where you're buying. If you're regional somewhere, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The biggest issue, of course, is always Sydney.
Yeah. Maybe we're the problem.
Yeah. We are.
Yeah.
But
Can you
we-
elaborate? What do you mean?
context, yeah.
Maybe we're only talking about real estate, Wollongong, Sydney, from where we're working. Maybe everyone else is
I don't
fine
mind
with
jumping
this.
on like a little realestate.com and seeing like
Oh,
an
same.
off.
I go on a little road trip on the weekend
Yeah.
or go on a little holiday. I'm straight to that real estate office looking in the window.
Yeah, you can see
What's
what's in
here?
there.
Didn't you
How
guys
much?
bully me for that when we did the New Zealand episode?
Yeah, but you're a nerd.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
You're a hobbit.
You're a goblin. What did I say?
A goblin.
Goblin.
Actually, I came up with a new nickname with Saturday.
Oh,
We're calling
it's
him-
a bit mean. You made it the group chat. The soccer group chat is now a photo of my face photoshopped onto a Teletubby.
The green Tubby because he wears a green kit.
I wear a green goalkeeper
Isn't that
jersey. I'm a
Dipsy
goalkeeper.
Witsy?
I'd like to clarify. I got man of the match that game and still got absolutely rinsed post game and called a
It's
Teletubby.
because
and
we love you.
it's just-
Dipsy
You
Wipsy.
can't win with these people. I'll tell you
Sorry,
what.
no, I got a bit off topic there, but I did get asked to bring that up. Not by
If I
Christian.
was a Teletubby, I'd definitely be
name
close.
names. You asked you to bring it up. It was Zub, wasn't it?
I think it was Zub.
Yeah,
I think
it was Zub.
Stephen as well.
Quite a few. Okay,
Yeah.
a few of them. All right, cool.
Back to stamp duty.
Anyway, back to first homeowners.
Oh,
Right?
sorry.
So yeah, basically $750 if you buy land and build, $600 if you're buying like off the plan, for example. Same requirement effectively as the stamp duty waiver. You've got to live in it for 12 months, and you've got to move in within 12 months of the occupancy certificate being granted. In fact, or if you build occupancy, if you buy, then again contract settlement date.
Yep.
So again, that's $10,000 if you buy or build brand new. But again, for $750 land and build, I don't know what you're actually getting.
A few light switches, probably.
Something just sort of clicked for me as we were running through that again.
Mhm.
Sorry. Maybe they do keep it so low so they don't have to pay it out. Like I know it's only 10 grand, but
I think they're just out of touch, to
Yeah.
be honest with you, or they're too lazy to
'Cause
actually
it-
overhaul. Well, I take that back. Part of one thing I got to talk about later is some of the changes that are going to be coming into effect soon.
Yeah.
Not with that, because that's a state government funded scheme, I believe,
Yep.
from memory. Which, moving on to the federal ones, which apply a bit more widely to everybody. The other big one is the first home guarantee scheme. So I know I've spoken quite a couple times now about family guarantees and what that means. So basically, it's for a quick refresh. If you don't have enough to form a 20% deposit, rather than the bank charging your lender's mortgage insurance, you can have, for example, a parent put up their property as additional collateral, and it allows you to borrow sometimes up to 100% of the purchase price. What the government guarantee scheme does, the government basically subs in for mum and pa. So basically, the requirement is you have to have a bare minimum 5%, which has to be verified as genuine savings, which is money that's in your account for at least 3 months. And you can basically borrow 95% of the property's value. So if you buy for $1 million, borrow $950. And the bank doesn't charge you any mortgage insurance because the government gives you the guarantee.
Is there only a certain amount of spots?
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know. I think from memory last I looked, I think it was like 30,000 spots available this
And
financial
yeah,
year.
what I've heard is it's
Um,
quite hard to get a spot.
Not anymore. No.
Not
When
anymore.
they first introduced it, there was only like 10,000 spots, but
Okay.
they've expanded the scheme
Broadened, yeah.
massively. So
Okay.
the last financial year, I know I was still looking at spots. I got one approved like in May or June.
Yeah, okay.
So right at the end of the financial year, there were still spots available. So they haven't been filling up. But there's a reason they haven't been filling up, and I'll get to that. When you hear the requirements of what the scheme is currently versus what it will be, it's kind of crazy. So this particular scheme has both property price caps and income caps. So the property price cap, to start off with, it does differ in regional areas versus major cities. Major cities being like Sydney, obviously the capital cities, and also regional centres. So Wollongong counts as a regional centre. So we get the same price cap as Sydney, but it's $900,000 under the scheme. The worst one for me is the income cap. So if you're a single applicant, it's $125,000 a year gross. If you're a couple, it's $200,000 gross. And that's got to be evidenced by your previous year's notice of assessment, which if you're buying at the maximum for $900,000 and you're borrowing 95%, which in effect is what, $855,000, as a single applicant, $125,000, because you have to do it as owner occupier too. Sorry, to clarify, it's all owner occupier as well.
Yep.
I can tell you right now, on $125,000 a year as a single applicant, you do not have the borrowing capacity to borrow that much. Even a couple of $200,000, I think you could just, but like it's just, again, it just feels very out of touch.
Yep.
Imagine again, you're living in Sydney where the median house price is now $1.5 million. $900,000 doesn't do much for you if you want a house, or depending on where you want a unit. It doesn't get you a unit in some places.
Yep.
The funny part about that, so again, similar requirements in terms of it's got to be owner occupier. This one doesn't have a time limit on it though. But for as long as you have the government as a guarantor on your loan, you have to be living in the property. So if you decide to move out and put the place on rent, and the government catches you doing it and you haven't notified them, then yeah, you got problems. But in theory, if you go by the letter of the law, you're supposed to notify them when that happens, and then they will remove the guarantee. And if that happens too early and they, you're still above 80%, where normally you're in mortgage insurance territory, the bank will redo it and charge you mortgage insurance all over again. So you've got to live in it the whole time. So this scheme is not effective if you wanted to buy something, live in it for 12 months and then rent it. Just you wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is, so on a previous episode also, I mentioned, it was pre-election. Remember we spoke about the election promises?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I started harping on for like a broken record about how they were talking about basically removing the income caps on this scheme and also increasing the price caps. And then I was very confused because usually when they do the scheme, it's every new financial year when they bring in new changes if they are making any, but there wasn't any this year. And I was very confused as to why. Did a bit of digging. Turns out they are still making those changes that I mentioned. So I wasn't wrong. Well, not that I was wrong, but they are following through on their promise, I should say. Thanks, Mads. Appreciate it. But they come into effect in January for some reason.
Okay, so they're turning into calendar year?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's really weird. I don't know why they're coming into effect in January, but from January onwards, the scheme effectively will have no income caps. It doesn't matter how much money you make. And the price caps will be adjusted to reflect the median price in each major city. I don't know how it works in regional areas if you're not in a major city, but I assume they wouldn't really have an issue with price caps out there. But for example, in Sydney, if it's built to reflect the median house price, that's going to be $1.5 million will be the cap. So the scheme actually will then basically, you're not going to be screwed if you make too much money, which right now, that's basically the way it feels. I actually had a customer say to me once, so we made too much money last year, now we're not going to get any government help. That's bullshit.
People start asking for pay decreases.
Literally. It's great. You know the funny part?
At that point, like if you're making $300,000 a year, well, if you're making enough to service that loan, you're in territory to have that type of deposit.
I'd argue no. If you want to buy for 1.5 mil and you need a 20% deposit, bear in mind the scheme has value. Even if you have 15% deposit, the scheme still helps you because you're not paying mortgage insurance.
LMI, rough.
It depends on the amount. At that maximum level, it'll be stupidly high, like in excess of like $30,000. Pretty massive. It also affects things like interest rate though, because if there's no mortgage insurance, you get an interest rate that reflects 80% borrowing. So it helps with interest rate, which in turn lowers repayment. So it's a massive help.
Yep.
I've always been an advocate for the scheme, just not the restrictions they had put in place because it just wasn't realistic.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this to me is actually a very rare government W. It's a win, I feel anyway. Because the way the scheme currently works, I always laugh at it because the way they measure the income threshold is effectively they look at your previous year's notice of assessment. So, for example, if the previous financial year you earn $100,000, you qualify for the scheme, but the bank will assess it on your most recent pay slips. So if you've changed jobs or had a massive pay rise, you could be earning $200,000 a year, but your previous year's notice of assessment was $100,000, you qualify for the scheme, even though it's very clear that you're earning more this year. which to me is like, well, I know they have to find a way to fairly enforce the income threshold, but it's quite funny. But now that's not an issue anyway. And that all comes into effect in January. So come January 1st, maybe don't call me on New Year's, but give it to like the 2nd of Jan, give me a call and we'll, if you make too much money but you still want the government to help you, then give me a call. Figure something out. Obviously, I've been rambling quite a bit. The only other thing I had left to talk about, the other scheme, which Benny's mentioned, asked me about a few times actually. Oh, actually, before I move on, I will mention, that first home guarantee scheme.
Yep.
It applies to first home buyers and Australians who haven't owned a property in the last 10 years.
So they've jumped out of
Okay.
the market.
Yeah. So if you own property in your 20s, then sold and have been renting ever since, and it's been 15 years, no worries, you can still qualify for that scheme.
Back in.
And it's citizens and permanent residents. It used to be just Australian citizens, I believe. Now it's citizens and permanent residents. The only other scheme I had to talk about was one that Ben always harps on about, which is the shared equity scheme, which the government's calling the Help to Buy scheme. That they finally got it through Parliament. It's finally happening. They had a pilot. They had a
Can't say I
test.
ever heard a good thing about this one.
I don't like it. I've made that pretty clear in the past. But what it effectively is instead of the government giving you a guarantee, they actually buy a share of the house. It got stuck trying to get through Parliament for what I understood for quite a while. They had a test run of it. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. Like they had like a pilot trial version of it, which supposedly received praise.
Feels messy.
Well, look, even looking at my notes, you can see how extensive my notes on it are, right? I'm not going to go through all of it.
I
Basically,
love how the last dot point. I fucking hate this scheme.
Massive L.
yeah. When I write notes, I sort of tend to. I start really formal. By the end of it, I'm over
Yeah.
it. So I start just saying,
Bad
"Fuck this
fucking
shit."
luck. You'll have to sell your house. I love that one.
The way the scheme is built, yeah, I'm building towards that. But basically, the way it works, you have to have a minimum 2% deposit, but the government can buy anywhere up to, depending on where the house is and whatever other requirements, they can buy up to a 40% share of your home. So effectively, and again, it's also going to be built to reflect different prices in specific geographic locations. So I read somewhere that Sydney is going to be 1.3 million will be the price cap for this scheme, which will also apply to Wollongong.
Yeah.
So you could buy a house for $1 million. You basically, the government stumps up $400,000 and you borrow not $600,000 minus another 2%. So you borrow like whatever, $580,000. So all of a sudden you basically have a home that's worth $1 million and you've only got a mortgage of just under $600,000, which is obviously a lot more affordable. The repayments are almost half.
Yeah.
So from an affordability standpoint, great. Where it gets messy is what happens in terms of the property going up in value, but also if you start making money, because the scheme also has built-in income thresholds too. What you've got is
I love that you can build them in past the purchasing of the property and signing of the agreement.
That's the problem. Well, that's my biggest issue with this. So for singles, it's $100,000. For couples, it's $160,000. So less than what the current guarantee scheme is, mind you.
And like minimum wages,
56.
I don't know.
Grand. So even at 160 for a couple, you've got to be earning just over minimum wage.
Yeah.
Really, like 20 grand.
Well, $160,000 for a couple is not a crazy amount of money.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
If you split it evenly.
So even if you're in a job, if you started on minimum wage, if you're in a job for 3 or 4 years, you're going to be earning 20 grand more.
Yeah. The crazy part about the thresholds though is they get reassessed every year.
Yuck.
So you enter the scheme on the 1st of July. The following 1st of July, the following year,
they changed.
So you were eligible for it when you applied. You got it approved. The government bought 40% share on your home. All of a sudden, you got a pay rise. You change jobs. Whatever happened, you're making more money now. And if it takes you above the threshold, you are no longer eligible for the scheme. And if they deem you're no longer eligible, you have to either buy the government out, which after a year, I doubt that's going to be possible. Otherwise, you wouldn't have needed them in the first place.
And how big of a price, like pay jump?
Well, let's say you were earning $95,000 a year and you got a 10%
Just
pay rise.
ticks over.
You're over.
You're over. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
But that's not enough to buy another half of a property.
No. So
and then how would you even go about that? Are you trying to remortgage the property?
You can't. You wouldn't have enough equity to do it in theory, not unless the property market jumped 30% in a year's time.
Yeah.
Also, quick sidebar, Nick, are you okay?
I thought he just fell asleep.
Sorry, he looked like he was asleep on the table just then. Anyway, yeah, and the other thing that is funny, it's the government doesn't assess it. If you do eventually want to buy the government out again, it's not based on the amount they put in as a dollar amount. It's based on the percentage of the property. So if the property goes up in value,
it's like a nasty X.
You've got to pay the government out based on the percentage. I'd say it's worse.
Sometimes can win against your ex. You're never winning against
I'm
the
not
government.
winning. So,
fair. I'm not a budget expert, but let's say at 10,000 places
uh,
on $1 million properties and they're 40% shares. So then the government's holding 40 million. 40 million worth of debt per year, if that's the case. But then they're making over that period of time more than the bank would.
I mean, they're
Then
never
you
going
pay
to
on
lose
interest.
out.
No, they're never going to lose
They're
out.
never
but
going
it's
to
just
make
also
things come in that they're going to lose out at.
yeah.
And
No,
they-
they just have to make it look like they're doing something because really 40 million from an annual budget is all.
yeah, to
Yes.
the government's nothing, but to a homeowner,
Yeah, it's massive.
if you need this scheme, it's because you can't afford to buy for $1 million. Then all of a sudden, if you start making 10% more and it puts you above the threshold, you've then got to buy the government out. Guess what? You don't have a choice. You know what your option is? You sell the house.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
So,
And when
what
you sell the house, the government will make, if it's gone up in value 10% over that year, the government takes a share of that profit. The government's profiting off it. Which to me
So
is,
if you
Don't touch this one.
If you are using that scheme,
Uh-huh.
are you then able to use like the first home buyer scheme?
yes.
So Joe Blow buys his first home for 40% share to the government. 12 months later, his wage went up out of the threshold, has to sell the property. If he wants to buy back in again, he can't use the first home buyer's
No,
grant.
he's not a
or
first
any
home
other
buyer
scheme.
anymore. And he's owned property in the last 10 years. So,
Yuck.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically
Very
a case of,
Bosses are going to love this one. Please don't increase my pay.
that's exactly why I had in my notes there. Bad fucking luck, sell your house. That's the reality of it.
Yeah, that is.
So, look,
where were they getting positive feedback for this? Like,
I don't
where
know.
does that?
I feel like there's more to it than there's no way they wouldn't have safeguards to protect against a situation like
Yeah.
that, right?
To be a
would
fly on the
but
wall
I
in
couldn't
these
find any.
meetings.
I couldn't find any safeguards that were mentioned. It was basically it's reassessed each year, and that's that.
I imagine these meetings go, everyone puts an idea in a box, they draw 3 out, and they get stamped green.
I don't know if you guys watch South Park, but there's a whole episode about the economy tanking, and they find out the guys who set the economic policy, they just basically cut the head off a chicken and let it run around a board, and wherever it lands, that's the policy decision. that they make.
Honestly, they may be onto something
It's just I don't know. I look at this scheme, and to me, it's just
messy.
not even messy. It's a really really bad idea.
Mm.
You're gonna have people buying their first home. They're gonna be all happy.
You're
and then-
setting them up to fail. That's
Yeah.
just
That's
the
all.
only way I can look at
It
it.
helps you buy a home, but then you're punished if you start making more money and improving your
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
Like, what are they going to do with the income thresholds? Are they going to, one idea, are they going to index them? So if you get a pay rise every year, so for example, government workers, they get pay rises yearly based on inflation. Their incomes are indexed to inflation. So if you're a government worker then, are they going to index the thresholds to inflation?
Yeah.
Is
The
that
fact
one way
that
to...
there's nothing written in to say that it will be X, Y, or Z.
And-
They don't have
just release
they
it.
haven't even given us a commencement date for this yet.
An
So I don't
idea,
know when
I
this is
think,
going to start.
that it could be looked at, not that they're listening to me, but if they are, if someone out there is,
Government's
whatever-
always listening. What do you
they're
mean?
always listening. Whatever your pay increase goes up as, could they look at the percentage of coming off? Does that make sense?
You can actually pay the government share out in increments. That's an option.
Okay.
So for example, you can
pay
pay
goes up
5% in 2
4%.
years.
Could they look at only selling out for an extra 4% rather than just cutting you straight off the bat 40%? You've got to pay it back.
In theory, no, because the way the scheme is built, it's the threshold, the income threshold is to be eligible for the scheme overall. It doesn't
Yeah,
impact
true.
what percentage
What
they're
you
allowed
actually-
to give you. It's
Mhm.
just basically, it's a straight line in the sand. Either you're on this side, you're eligible, you're on this side, you're
Mm.
not. So in theory, you cross that line, what do? You obviously can't afford to buy the government
No.
out.
No,
If you could, you wouldn't need the scheme in the first place. So
that's
as I said, to be really brutal, go fuck yourself, sell your house
Mhm.
and see you later.
Yeah.
Which is really brutal. And I don't know. I can't see any merit in this scheme. I really can't.
I completely
Not unless there
agree.
were safeguards built in so that
Unless
once,
you're planning on being on minimum wage for the rest of your life.
I don't know. I feel like there's other ways. There must be safeguards in
But then,
place that they
like,
haven't.
you have more financial security renting. Like, you know,
At that
you've
point-
generally got a fixed amount that you're going to be paying at least for a 12-month period.
Yeah.
And,
And if you get pay rise, it improves your situation.
exactly right.
It helps you. Whereas in this case, it's almost like if you
Yeah.
get enough of a pay rise, you're screwed.
Whole other conversation, whole other episode, but I think it's the same thing with public housing as well.
That I've got no idea.
I think it's literally line in the sand.
I got no clue.
If you earn over the threshold, I think
I don't know the ins and outs. I know one part of it is if you're not working, you pay X amount. And then if you get a job, it goes,
depends
it
on
goes
what
up
you're
to a certain
earning.
amount.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, they're in a better
Keep
situation
under the radar.
not working.
Yeah, keep it under the
Because
radar.
if they work
Yeah,
a part-time job, then they're going to be paying 3 times more rent. So
Yeah,
it's
exactly right.
cheaper for them to just stay at home.
fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's It's one of those things. Like I said, I think the expansion of the guarantee scheme is a massive, massive win. And I think it's actually really, really good policy on the government's behalf. From the point of view of helping first buyers get into the market, we could also go back to the issue of, remember I said on a previous episode, again, it's a Band-Aid solution to the housing affordability crisis. Doesn't actually solve the problem.
No.
It's a Band-Aid solution that helps. But guess what it does? It in turn drives up demand and it's going to further drive up prices. So it doesn't solve the issue, but at least it does actually help first-time buyers. That's you can't really dispute that fact. Whereas this Help to Buy scheme, it's just I see no value. I see no merit in it. I really don't. It's almost like it encourages people to get under the scheme and then just not progress in their career or try and make more money ever.
On paper, well, not even on paper, it sounds like the idea of the government owning a portion of the home sounds reasonable for more people to get into the market. But yeah, when you're talking about the more ins and outs and
basically
that part, you're signing your life away.
May as well just go back straight to public housing. Just support that. Government buy the whole house and give it to people. Like, what do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And maybe that's the old school ethnic in me. The thought of the government owning a share of my house terrifies me. But
it terrifies me.
Even the requirements though, like knowing that if you qualify for the scheme because you make $95,000 a year and then the next year you get a 10% pay bump, what do you do?
No.
I did a lot of research before this episode. I couldn't find any mention of safeguards. In that situation, what do you actually do aside from the obvious of selling the house? What do you do? It just doesn't.
Surely kicking these people out of their house.
Yeah, I would like to think there's the safeguard that I would think of that comes to my mind would be if somebody goes over the threshold like that, then have custom repayment options and plans in place, case by case basis. Don't just have a blanket rule of sell the house, see you later.
Yeah, no line in the sand.
Yeah, it just seems kind of brutal. But
there needs to be some more thought around it and a few more allowances, I think, in order for this to work. I understand where they're coming from. However, it's just not that smart.
Yeah, like I said, there must be more to it that I just couldn't find. I don't know. It just doesn't seem.
Well, if it's not in action yet, there's nothing.
It seems so half-baked.
There's only so much research.
Yeah.
It really seems half-baked.
Yeah.
I don't know. All things considered, though, when you look at the first home buy benefits in general, to be fully honest with you, I'm finding more and more young people, especially single first home buyers, because this is all well and good to meet the requirements, up to $1 million, great. It's not a matter of actually having the borrowing capacity to do it.
Exactly right.
I can tell you right now, on a single income, even if you're, in the top 20, the top 20% of income earners in the country at your age bracket, property prices versus people's wages are ridiculous.
Yeah.
The income needed to service, if you buy for $1 million and then go under the guarantee scheme and you borrow 950, 95%, the income you need as a single applicant on that level is just ridiculous. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, and it's not even worth mentioning because I don't know many people who are first home buyers who would be earning that much money.
No, exactly right. And the waivers, the grants, the schemes are all positive, seem to be relatively positive things. But at the end of the day, if you can't afford the property, you can't afford the property.
And
it's not going to help you get in. These aren't going to help you get into the market if you physically can't afford to get into the market.
Exactly.
They're there to benefit people that can.
Exactly. And the only way a lot of young people can afford to enter the market is basically continue living at home with mom and pa and buy something and rent it out. Or marry for money. Marry rich. Great solution to solve all our problems. But no, they're buyer's investment. And that's the only way they can afford it. And it's obviously, I'm an advocate of it. I speak to so many single first-time buyers who go, but I've heard all about these first-time benefits, and if I don't do it now, I'm going to miss out forever. And I went, well, if you were to buy and claim the benefits, would you be able to afford to live there for the amount you're talking about? Oh, not really. Okay. So then you'd have to basically suck up 12 months worth of living there to save $25,000 on stamp duty, but in turn, you'd miss out on $30,000 worth of rental income you could otherwise be getting. They go, it's not really worth it.
They just see it as a scam.
It's just not.
They see it as money that they're missing out on, but they're not. They're creating more work for themselves.
Exactly. And the reality
in a hard situation.
The reality is you either forego your first home buyer benefits or you just don't enter the market, period.
Yeah.
Couples are a bit different because, I've said before, the way borrowing capacity calculates, a couple earning $70,000 a year each will be able to borrow more than a single applicant earning $140,000.
Which is wild because there's more expenses for a couple.
It's because, but it doesn't even out because of tax. Because we have an individual taxation system in this country, not a household taxation system. Okay. Some countries do have household taxation. So they tax you based on the total household income.
I'd actually like to look at that as well. I'd like to explore that option.
Episode 11, reforming the taxation system.
Oh God, we really do have targets on our heads.
That's going to have one person at home.
Yeah.
vibe.
That's why I'm
Because
really liking to look into it.
You've got a house husband.
No, house wife.
No. Nick's going house husband.
Begging every day. Loves his matcha and Pilates.
Oh.
Good stuff. Well, that's all I really feel the need to say. The point is, in a lot of cases, the first home buyer benefits are just.
I was going to say rent vesting as well, actually. Sorry.
Yeah.
You brought that to my attention.
Yes.
A little while
I have
ago.
so
looked into
many
doing it
friends
myself.
looking at doing this.
Yeah. Like for that, like exactly what you just said, for the 25 odd grand you're going to forego, you've got an investment property there that a lot of people I think now are probably looking for something they can live in down the track and they can rent out now. But either way, if you just get a foot in the market.
And it said buy where you can, live where you want.
Oh,
Correct.
that's like our live,
Correct.
laugh, love.
Yeah.
You know,
Put it on a
put it on
t-shirt.
the wall.
Sell it
See
at
on a
house
bunch
to
of
home.
50-year-old women's walls.
Our generation. That's our new live, laugh, love.
Honestly, ours isn't even that positive. Ours would just be buy whatever the fuck you can afford.
Yeah, literally.
Ours would be.
That even comes into first home
Help to Buy
buyers.
scheme,
Yeah, let the government buy up share. Yeah.
and then bend you over 6 years later.
Family photo on the wall, you holding your Australian government Canberra
No,
logo.
it's you, your wife, your kids, your dog, and Anthony Albanese.
Oh, it's so romantic.
Only 40% of him though.
Would you want the top or bottom?
Oh, no. We'll save that conversation for later.
God, targets on our head.
Oh no. But no, to your point, rent investing works a lot better in a place like Sydney compared to Wollongong, right? Because there's a massive price.
Yeah.
And the idea of it is if you pay the rent on a 2-bedroom apartment to live in the city where you want to live, but you buy a house, which is usually out of reach in the area you want to live in, but in a high growth area, you don't have to ever live there. But if you hold it for 3 or 4 years, you get much stronger capital growth versus buying the unit that you want to live in, which is in most, again, not always, please don't quote me, but usually units tend to see lower capital growth compared to houses.
Yep.
So rent investing in a lot of cases is more so about, at younger ages, especially building that property wealth, growing the equity side of things. And you're going to get more of that with a house that's in a high growth area.
Yeah. Well, I even have so many friends that have gone out and bought 1-bedroom units because that's all they could do to entry level into the market. And, growing families, starting to have kids, can't grow the family in the 1-bedroom unit. So rent it out and go rent where they can grow their family.
Yeah. You're holding an asset.
Yeah. You're not out of the market. If it's moving, you've got a property moving with it.
Exactly. That's the scary part, selling in one market
And
then
buying in
potentially watching
another.
it grow.
Yeah.
Like if you sold in 2019 or 2020, like you.
I had a relative where she sold a unit and they, had the money to buy a house. And, they were turning up to opens, went with 60, 70 other people in North Sydney. And before you know it, where the suburbs where they were able to look and be able to buy were cutting down. So, and ended up buying probably not ideally where they wanted to, but.
You got to buy what you can buy.
Yeah.
It's scary to think you can miss out on.
Yeah.
Even over a 12
Buying and selling in the same market's always relative. So
Yeah.
if you're doing that, even though you think, oh my God, I can't believe I'm spending this on this type of property, if you've just sold, it's relative.
Exactly right.
Good stuff, guys. I think we're going to wrap it up there because Nick's throwing hand signals at me saying we've
Our
wrapped up
director,
a-
so
a
demanding.
producer, man.
Our producer.
We
I
missed
like
Dom.
I like that.
He was a lot
Funny.
nicer.
Again, we had this conversation before we started recording. Dom's nicer to you because he's not married to you. Nick's married to you.
Well, I
Bit
think
different.
Nick should be nicer then.
No, I don't know. He's laughing.
We'll have to have a marriage podcast soon.
Yeah.
Let's not do that. Cool. That'll do us for
God, everyone would
today.
be divorced.
Jesus, this is a really abrupt ending. Anyway, we're going to wrap that up there before we start throwing more marital
Yeah.
Yeah.
marital advice out to everybody. Again, if you haven't already, please recommend our podcast to a family member or a friend.
Even if you don't like it, just still recommend
do it
it.
anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Look,
and if
the-
you're a first home buyer,
Call Christian.
call Christian and then call me.
No.
No, call Matt. I'll have a
Yeah.
chat. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, call Christian
share
and
it.
he'll
Give me a
run you
buzz.
through the.
See what we can do.
Like you could be listening to this in 6 months' time.
Still,
Now,
it's
it
still
could
going to be
completely
relevant.
different hoops to
It's-
jump through.
it's relevant.
Keep you
It's-
updated
yeah.
as more.
Anytime they make changes, we'll keep you in the loop. Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably won't be for a while. It's usually every year they overhaul shit.
Yep. So if we're still doing this
In a year's time.
in a year's time,
Talk to
you'll
you
hear
then.
from us.
Yep.
Good stuff. Well, thank you everybody for listening. I will let Ben round us out by saying
Ciao.
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 Everything presented in this podcast is for information and entertainment purposes only, and all advice is to be considered general in nature. It does not take into account your personal circumstances and financial objectives. Please consider if this advice is right for you and look to consult a financial professional.